explain one of the reasons I'm so keen on these folding propellers that I've been using lately. As I say, that the trick to it was to put a bit of silicone on the pins, and that way the pins just stay in position. The thing I really like is that to prepare them, all I had to do was to file off the top to make it perfectly smooth. I don't touch the bottom at all, because what I'm finding out is that with the Syma props, I have to file top and bottom to make them thinner, and it's just so easy. It's too easy to not file them flush to get them off so they're no longer flat on the bottom. And the moment you do that, you've got a wobble. The other big reason, of course, is that if these hit anything, they just fold. So they're not putting stress on the motor. And a final one, because they're so thin, they're a really efficient airfoil. So in terms of putting it on, it's very straightforward. So as I say, I had to drill them out to 5mm, but that's no big deal. And then they just slip straight onto the Bugs 3 shafts, just with the top little bit of plastic filed off. So that's sitting flat on the bottom. And then using these prop nuts that I can just put on like this. And the good thing, I don't need to touch the motor at all. I can just hold it with the pin piece either side, where I'm getting the tension up. So I'm not having to put stress on the body of the motor at all. So all round, they fly well, they protect the motors from impact, and they're much easier to set up than the hang on, that is rotating, and much easier to cut correctly compared to the fixed props. So there we have it. They just fold up like that. Okay, so I used some extra sticky silicone, just a little blob of it on there, and also, I don't know if you can see it, but underneath it as well. So just either side of the pins, and that seems to have done the trick. There's been no movement of any of the pins since. And the stuff, because it's very sticky and I turn it over as soon as it starts to dry, it doesn't seem to go in, leak into the pins. It seems to just stay on the outside. So they flick out and they fly right. So quite pleased with that. So now for a bit of flying. This is just the footage from the TX03, the FPV camera, so there's no sound with it. I'm flying onto headwind as I'm flying on this park towards the sea. You can see the sea just over behind those trees. With the production build of the Bugs 3 protocol for the jumper, for Deviation TX, it's so much easier to hold the thing down when you're heading to the wind. Coming back with the wind behind me, I still get a bit nervous and sort of pull up a bit because it comes rocketing back. But overall, it's handling really well. So I'm very happy with deviation and also with these props. So these green ones, I've cut them shorter. They're the first pair I got on the red Bugs, and I cut them shorter than the more recent white ones I put on the black Bugs. Both sets fly well. There's just something a little bit strange about the white ones that I'll get to as we do a demo. But once again, a quick run up against the wind, heading to the other end. So I'm pretty confident now of using my Bugs fleet as a general purpose drone, so I can hang an expensive camera underneath it and get some high quality video or stills if I'm flying somewhere interesting. So I wanted to get props I was sure about, that I could lock on, that aren't going to come off in mid-flight. Yeah, and they perform well, that are balanced okay, don't give me excess vibration. And so far, with the minor fix of smearing a bit of silicone on the pins, I've got no problems. So this was just a little flight in fine weather, but with a bit of a breeze. Once again, just to make sure that these props and these bugs are performing how I'd want them to. So apart from the little matter of, I suppose, acro for sports flying, I'm perfectly happy with the bugs. Probably once I've got into a bit more photography and flown some interesting places, that's when I might have another think about where I want to go next. But I must admit, seeing, I think it's Drew Campton shoveling out a whole back of his truckload of broken props, and plus exploding broken batteries, 6S, I can see this could be a very expensive hobby. I mean, it can be a hell of a lot of fun, but it's a question for me as to whether I want to put that kind of money in it. I had the same thing with motorbikes. Rather than buy a brand new bike, I had something that was a few years older, but it still did everything I wanted to do, and I had a lot of fun. But this is the great thing with this hobby. There's plenty of room for us to do whatever we want to do. Spend as much or as little as we want to. So once again, a reasonably fast run with a reasonable degree of tilt into the wind, and without the tendency of the thing to shoot up high the way it used to with the earlier builds. And that's just a taste of the kind of speed it's got. I've got to get a little bit more confident about letting that run. Actually, I'd forgotten, I was getting some odd noises from the controller in terms of battery. In fact, I wound up changing the battery in the jumper. So one of the little jobs I've got to do is to make up a different tone so I can clearly tell whether it's the warning is for the battery in the jumper or whether it's the battery on the drone. So now I've got used to editing the sound.ini file. I can make up any kind of short tune I want. So that's something to work on. So this is the flying with the other TX03, which seems to go for 1970s Kodachrome colour compared to the other one. And as I say, these props are slightly longer, so a little bit more lift. About here I start to worry that there are kids appearing on the playing field, so getting ready to go. Once again, I'm very happy with the stability that I've got with these props and the general degree of control. It's a nice time of year in South Australia. Spring's coming on strong, and we'll soon go from mild spring weather to perhaps a little bit too hot. But again, those goalposts no longer seem to be the big attraction for the drone, and that's the first anomalous thing I've seen where with the wind behind it I eased off the throttle and the thing just sort of flipped over and landed upside down, going too slow and too low to do any damage, but it's not something I've seen before. So I flew again and I managed to do pretty much the same thing, maybe just slightly higher this time, but over it goes, bang, on its back. So I'm not sure what's going on. So what I did when I got home was did some trials just on this little patch of lawn out the back. I've got the wind blowing from behind the drone, so the idea was to get it up and cut the throttle just above the grass and see what happens. Now, I probably should have picked a bigger area and gone up a little bit higher because I didn't really manage to prove anything here. So once again, you get an idea of what the props are like. It's pretty quiet compared to other props. So temp 1 coming up in a moment. Cut the throttle. Around about now. And it's clearly not high enough, it just goes to ground. Once again, it's just happily bouncing around with no tendency to flop on its back at all. But I still think it's something to do with the wind behind it, stalling, and probably the props bowling out still in the air. But I think I'm learning from this. You keep the throttle up a bit and there's no problems with landings. So once again, thanks for watching and happy flying.